Today we are going to learn about lines and shapes. Everything around us is made up of lines and shapes. So what kind of lines are there? Well, I know that there are straight lines. That's a horizontal line. That's a vertical line, and that is a diagonal line. There are also curvy or wavy lines. There's short lines, there's long lines. There's even fat lines or thick lines, and then skinny or thin lines. There's also curly and spiral lines. There are zigzag lines, and there are crisscross lines that make an X. These are just a few lines, but there are a lot more. You can use lines to make shapes, and with those shapes, you can make pictures. Well, what type of shapes are there? In art, there are two types. There are geometric. Those are things that remind me of math. And then there are organic or freeform. Now, geometric shapes are shapes that have names for them and are ones that you probably see in math, like circles, that's a triangle, squares, four-sided shape that are all the same, rectangles, that's just a stretched out square. You can also have an oval, which is a stretched out circle, and you can have lots of other types of geometric shapes. This is a hexagon because it has 6 sides. Organic shapes are shapes that are not mathematical. That means sometimes there's names like a heart, but then sometimes there's not a name, like that big blob I drew. You can see this other blob. You can have a little more freedom when drawing the organic shapes because you make them up. This shape, I made a spiral and then little wavy lines to make a sun. All shapes start with lines. These can be straight or curved lines. Isn't that neat? This week, experiment making an artwork using lines and shapes. You could make geometric or organic shapes using straight or curved lines. In this drawing, I used all curvy lines, and I'm making a landscape. You can use lines and other shapes to add details to your drawing to make it look a little more interesting. Have fun experimenting and seeing what you can create. Another way you could do this project is you could just practice drawing geometric or organic shapes on a piece of paper. If you're using a piece of paper, check it out. You can use your corner to help you because you have 2 straight lines, so then you only have to add the other 2 straight lines to make your 4-sided shape. There's a circle that I'm drawing, and then I want to practice drawing some organic shapes. So I'm drawing a heart, a little blob. Now I'm experimenting with a Sharpie, but you should practice with a pencil because Sharpie can it erase? No. I'm only using it so that you can see. And then here I'm using zigzag lines to create a lightning bolt. After you finish drawing your shapes, you could even go in and add some details to your shapes. You could create some designs like striped lines, or maybe even polka dots. The choice is up to you. Then, after you ask permission from an adult, you can cut out your shapes. If you need help cutting, watch the second video that I have and it will give you some step-by-step directions. You finish cutting, look at your paper. Doesn't that look cool? You can see the shapes that have been cut out. Hold on to that because I have an idea that you can use this for later. Okay, friends, so here are some of my geometric shapes, and then here are some of my organic shapes. Now, play with your shapes and see how you could fit them together to make a picture. You can just do this on a flat surface, and feel free to move them around until you have them placed where you would like. Once you're happy with the way that your shapes look, you may go back and add some designs just to make it a little more interesting. Next step is you can glue them on a piece of paper. If you don't have glue or another piece of paper, that's okay. You could just keep them on your flat surface. Now notice before I glue, I'm actually moving around my shapes, and this is called overlapping. I just want to make it look a little more interesting, but you are the artist, so you make your picture how you want it. Okay, now remember that piece of paper you have that was left over after you cut out the shapes? Well, here's a cool idea. You could glue that on a piece of paper, and look, your shapes show through. This is actually called negative space. It's not a bad thing. That just means that it is taking up the opposite of what normally your shapes do. If you like how that looks, guess what? You could go back and add some designs just to add a little more flair to your artwork. Just some ideas to help you get started, but remember, you are the artist and the world is your studio, so create this how you would like. If you need some ideas, maybe go for a shape hunt around your house first and then start experimenting. Have fun creating your shapes out of lines this week, and I'll see you next week.